Braxcast time once again. This is the 41st episode, and we're going to get into doing a tier list of all of the Rippaverse books or Rippaverse stories that are currently out. But before we get into that, got a little bit of news and going ons revolving around Horsemen and a Black Friday sale. So there's a Black Friday sale that's ending on the 2nd of December, I believe, and it's mostly older stuff, most notably Alpha Core 1 and ISOM, I believe, are on sale along with some miscellaneous merchandise items. The link to the Rippaverse website will be in the description, so be sure to check that out if you're catching this one before Monday over the course of the weekend. So hopefully you're having a good Thanksgiving weekend if you are in the States. But before we get into grading all of the Rippaverse books or ranking them, I want to talk about The Horseman, Welcome to Florist Park. And there was a little bit of drama with the art in this book concerning this one page right here. So you see, if I can zoom in here a little bit, right? You can see his hands there. So it's his hand drawn right here. So you've got his right and his left hand are overlapping. And it looks like his right hand, I believe, has some extra fingers. So a lot of people were saying, oh, this book was being made by AI. But we do have the original pencils from Joe Bennett. And I'm not sure how good you can see it, but it's very clear having this printed out in front of me that Joe Bennett did draw this properly, where you have, it's very clear that what would be the extra finger is clearly drawn to look like, to appear as it's the other hand. But the inker made a little bit of a mistake in just drawing the finger, like the line doesn't go. It goes to the knuckle of the overlapping hand instead of tapering off to that other hand that's under it. So it's a very minor thing. Of course, it's fantastic artwork. Joe Bennett's got really detailed pencil work. Like you see everything in the background. Nothing's very much left to the imagination. There's nothing that, there's some pencilers that'll draw things very vaguely and the inker has to do a lot of the work. Not so here. There was a lot of details, a lot of lines, and the inker made one little mistake, or the colorist made one little mistake, and it made a very slight error. Makes it look a little bit off, but for the most part, this looks very good. And all the art in this book really holds up. It's a very good book from an artistic perspective because Joe Bennett is just a masterclass of an artist. And you had was it? Yes, Jay Brown coloring this book. It did a fantastic job on coloring this book as well. But that's really what I wanted to mention with Horseman, because that was going around in the community, was the concern about this piece of art here. But as you can see with the pencil work here, and if I can zoom in just to make sure you have that, it's very clear on the pencil work that the hands are drawn properly, and it was just a mistake in the inking. And of course, as this company gets their editorial process tighter and things get better, you'll see less stuff like this fall through the cracks. And even stuff like this is so minor that it doesn't really ruin the reading experience for the average person. Just that you've got a lot of people who go through these books with a fine-tooth comb and look through every single little thing. But that is definitely not me, but me in terms of like looking for all the little mistakes. I do like to comment on this stuff since, the community does talk about these sorts of things. And I like to, give my 2 cents and show off the comparisons, because I don't think too many people physically, do stuff like that. But anyways, we're going to get into a tier list for the Rippaverse book. So there aren't going to be any more books for 2024. So there's currently 8 stories, including the 2 from the Rippazine. And I'm going to tell you which ones are my favorite and really solidify that, because I've seen a bunch of you guys in the comments leave your personal lists, and I've said that. But with Horseman being out now, I'm going to give my basically final list of 2024 of my favorite Rippaverse stories. So we're heading into that now. Hello guys, this is the tier list for all the Rippaverse stories. So we're including Saoirse and Salvage, even though those are short stories in the Rippazine, and we're including the 6 full-length graphic novels that have been released as of the end of November of 2024. I've got this, all of them here. Might be a little bit hard for you to see on this, but I will tell you where I'm ranking these. But we're going to start with the most recent book, Horseman, and I'm going to put Horseman in A tier. I think it's a fantastic book. And Alpha Core, just like that. I think I'm going to put Alpha Core behind. These books are very similar. Of course, they've got the same writer, same penciler, in terms of their story structure and how that's presented. Not necessarily like the basic plot. I'm just talking about like the two-page spreads, the way the action and the exposition are woven together. Chuck Dixon does a really good job of weaving those together, and it's very similar in Alpha Core and Horseman, which is why I think they're basically on the same tier. But now we're going to go into the Isom story. So I think Isom 2 is definitely a little bit better than Isom 1. Definitely focuses more on Isom's story. We learn a little bit more about Isom, that very essential why he quit. But I'm going to put that into B tier because it's part of a free issue story, free books, free parts, the old Advised arc, and really can't say how good it's all going to be until we get that third one. I think Isom 1 is going to go into that B tier as well on that basis. I really think they're both good books. I like Isom so far. It's just until we get that third one, it's really going to make or break the first two parts of that story because it is part of a trilogy. Right? But now we're going to go into the Ripazine stories. So I would say with Salvage and Saoirse. These are these two stories. So we're going to start with Salvage first. I definitely think Salvage is a better story. I'm going to put that into B tier behind the Isom stories. And I really love Bart Sears' arts on this. It's just that with Salvage and with Saoirse, they're so short. Just as they get interesting, the story ends, right? And that's the same thing with Saoirse. They're both very similar. I think Bart's noir style suits it a little bit better. Canon White's got very clean art. Of course, Saoirse is an absolutely stunning character, so it's really nice to see her. But after reading Salvage, Saoirse's story definitely feels a bit, I don't say redundant. It's just very much in the same structure, but of course she's an LF. That's the Lethal Force certified private investigator, just like Salvage is. So they're going to have similar stories. It's just that there isn't enough pages to develop and differentiate between them. And I think Salvage is just a little bit of a cooler character than Saoirse is. But we're going to get into Gooding. So Gooding is going to be a bit of a harder one for me to do. But honestly, with Gooding, I'm not sure if I should do B or C tier. But if I'm going to be fair, I'm probably going to put Gooding into B tier, just above these two. Gooding is a good book. But there really needs to be a little bit more to Gooding's story to really flesh it out. There's this time between the end of Gooding the Polymath and the beginning of Isom number 2 when we're first introduced to Gooding. That's really important for people who care about the universe aspect of this universe. It tells a good, complete story on its own. It's just that there's just a little bit of information that I would have wanted from Gooding the Polymath that Mike Barron and the other Rippaverse crew could give us in 2 more issues of Gooding that are around the same length. Definitely, I've talked about this. But for now, I'd say B tier is going to be a pretty fair thing. But with that, we've got the last one, and I'm going to put Yaira in S tier. I still am going to say that Yaira number 1 is my favorite book of the Rippaverse so far. Sasaka's absolutely knocked it out of the park with this story. She was such an interesting character when she made her appearance in Isom number 1, and Yaira number 1 really just built on that intrigue, and also with the implications at the end, not only in relation to Yaira's story, but relation to Alpha Core as well. It's a really big universe building book for the Rippaverse, and it's also a really good story for Yaira, and it makes her character even more intriguing than it was when she was first introduced in Isom number 1. So it's got that S tier spot for me right there. And that is my final tier list. So if I'm going to have to go and make an actual list, I'm going to go and say it's Yaira, then Horseman, then Alpha Core, then Isom 2, then Isom 1, then Gooding, then Salvage, then Saoirse. So that is my list as I have it, this tier list. Of course, this is subject to change as the release schedule gets, even crazier. 2025 is going to be a pretty crazy year, so it's going to be pretty interesting to revisit this around the same time next year when we have all the 2025 books in our hands and see how my opinions of this change, especially with Isom after Isom number 3, like I said, because it's going to be pretty hard it's hard right now to judge Isom number 1 and 2 without that third part of the ill-advised arc, because those two books are building up to that epic conclusion of the ill-advised arc, in my opinion. Or I would say that's probably the most objective thing you can say about Isom, is that it's building up to it builds up a 3-part story, and we only have 2 parts of that, so I can't judge that whole story in its entirety, and that's what I really need to really accurately put it on a tier list like this. But for now, as of 2024, or as of November 2024, of all the books that we have, this is my final tier list. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this section of the Braxcast. Okay, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that tier list, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to keep up with the Braxcast and everything else from Velvet Room Publishing. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.